Hey everybody, I'm Giancarlo.
And I'm Felicia.
This is our review of
Euphoria. Build a better dystopia. Totally a made-up word. But
No, it's not a made-up word.
dystopia is a real word?
Yes.
What does it mean?
I don't know, but it's not a made-up word.
It is a made-up word.
It's not a made-up word.
Google that shit, I'm telling you.
Euphoria is a worker placement game where the dice are your workers. In the box you'll get playing boards separated in 4 areas: Icarus, Euphoria, Wastelands, and Subterra. 48 unique recruitment cards. 36 artifact cards, 6 for each kind of artifact. Construction tiles. You only use 6 random ones each game to add replay value and variation. 6 ethical dilemma cards / reference cards. 24 worker dice of different colors, 4 for each. A bunch of wooden pieces to represent morale, knowledge, miners, resources, commodities, and progress markers. A bunch of cardboard pieces to represent authority markers for each player, unavailable territories, unavailable actions, market tiles, multiplier markers, and allegiance markers. And finally, a rulebook. To win the game, a player must place all 10 of his authority markers on the board.
Here's how to set up. Shuffle the recruits deck and deal out 4 to each player. From those 4 cards, choose 2 of them and place them face down in front of you. The other 2 cards are discarded. Now each player will reveal one of the recruitment face up. Try choosing a recruit that will help you in the early stages of the game. Each player now gets a multiplier board, which can be used to keep track of resources and commodities in case there are not enough pieces during the game. Shuffle the artifacts deck and place it next to the board. Now for each territory, you will see a star depending on the number of players playing. You will need to block some off with a token so that the remaining spaces equal the number of players. In a 4-player game, it should look like this. Shuffle all the ethical dilemma cards and deal 1 to each player. This card should be placed face down in front of you, with the reference side face up. Each player starts the game with only 2 dice of their color. The rest are set aside. Place 1 unavailable action token at the end of each tunnel on the board. On the construction side, shuffle all the tiles and place 6 of them face down. The other tiles are hidden and out of the game. Finally, place a miner token at the start of each tunnel and a progress token at the start of each allegiance track. You're now ready to start the game.
Each player will now roll 2 dice to see who starts. The number each player rolled will also be the starting knowledge for that player's workers. The first player now takes his turn. On your turn, you can do one of 2 actions, but not both. One of the actions is to place a worker from your pool onto the board to do a particular action. If you start your turn with workers that have the same knowledge, you can place all those workers in one turn. The other option is to remove some of your workers from the board. To remove a worker from the board, you must pay a retrieve cost, an orange or green item. This will also make you gain 2 morale points. If you choose not to pay the workers, you lose 1 morale point instead. Once you've taken back the workers you want, you roll those dice and keep them in your worker pool. Now, let me explain the 3 types of areas you can place a worker in. The dotted squares with the arrow means that it is a temporary action. If you place a worker there, you must pay the cost in the box to the left of it. So in this case, you must pay energy. If you do, you get to take a gold bar or an artifact card. If there is a worker there already, that worker gets bumped back to the player, and that player will roll that die and add it to his worker pool. The multi-use action is the larger gray box with no limit to the number of workers which can be placed there. And the last type of action space is the one-time use action. These are squares with a cost inside them and have no arrows to the side of it. Here you place a worker, pay the cost inside the square, and do the action. You can't be bumped from these squares.
Let's take a look at your workers' morale and knowledge track. The morale track is basically your maximum hand size. The more morale they have, the more artifacts you can hold in your hand. The knowledge track is how smart your workers are, and you do not want them to be smart. They are easier to control when they are stupid. Every time you roll your dice, you add up the total plus the knowledge. If the sum is equal to or more than 16, you must lose 1 of your highest workers. The smart ones realize they are in a dystopia and leave you. So basically try to keep morale high and intelligence down, like a true government should. Now, let's look at each location on the board. The worker activation tank is where you can gain a dice by paying 3 energy or 3 water. If you paid with bolts to the head, reduce your knowledge track by 2. If you wake them up with fresh water in the face, you gain 2 morale points. To get resources, you need to go to Cloud 9, the farm, the generator, or the aquifer. Here, when you place your worker, you add up all the knowledge of all workers in that area and see what you get from that location. The first symbol on each one of these means you move the allegiance track of that resource up by 1. Each track has 4 tiers.
The first tier means you get a bonus token when you visit that location. The second tier means that instead of choosing whether you get a gold or an artifact, you will get a gold and an artifact when you do a tunnel action. The third tier means that if you have a recruit of that allegiance face down in front of you, he becomes face up and you now have that recruit's ability. The star means that any player can place a star of his color on one of his recruits of the same allegiance, thus getting you closer to winning the game. Now all these bonuses I just mentioned are nice, but you can only use them if you have a recruit card in front of you of that allegiance. Let's take a look at the tunnels and construction sites. Every time a worker visits a tunnel, move the miner 1 space ahead. If it reaches this spot, all players with a hidden recruit from that allegiance must turn it face up. When the miner reaches the end of the tunnel, a new action becomes available to all players. Tunnels are a great way to get resources and can be used again even if the miner has finished digging. Construction sites are really cool. When all 4 of the areas to the left of a construction site is filled up, flip over the construction site and place it like so. You just create another action which can be used by players. All dice that were there are returned to the players and rolled to be added to their worker pool. Each player who had at least a die there during construction can place an authority star on that construction. Each construction has a penalty written on it if you don't have a star there when you use the action. These are now new actions which have a cost and an output.
Okay, now for the artifacts and markets. The artifact markets is where you can trade in any 3 artifact cards, so you can place one of your authority stars on the star-shaped location of that area, or on a construction of that area which does not have your star on it. If you have 2 artifact cards of the same type, you can trade those in instead of 3 different ones. This is the way to go to reduce the number of stars you have left and get you closer to winning the game. These also advance the allegiance track when used. The markets that are built can be used to place one of your stars on an available spot of the star of that area. They can have a pretty high cost, but hey, it's victory points. Icarus is in the sky and don't need construction. They have their own markets at the start of the game, and these are used the same way as all the other ones. Now, as you may have noticed, you get a lot of recruits which give you special abilities and give you access to the allegiance bonuses as well. So try to have your hand in everyone's pocket if you can.
Now remember those ethical dilemma cards at the start of the game? Well, once per game you can spend your entire turn to flip this card over. Pay the cost of the artifact shown or 2 of any type to do one of the 2 actions. You can draw 2 recruits and keep one of them, or you can place a star on this card. Once a player has placed all 10 of his stars anywhere on the playing area, that player is the winner and ruler of his dystopia.
First off, we want to say that this is a pretty good worker placement game. Not our favorite, but it's a good one. It's long, strategic, and the setup time is worth it, but only if playing with players who know what they are doing. If you do not focus on what other players are doing, you can easily give the win to another player. Some players will get really lucky with their starting cards and can steamroll all over the other players. There is a lot of luck in this game, and sometimes no matter how hard you try, you'll lose just because someone else was lucky enough to get good cards and maybe have another player helping him without realizing it. You truly have to keep up with what is going on, who is going for what, and how to stop them while increasing your odds of winning. The rulebook is really good and it's an easy read. The production quality is very nice and the mechanics are good. The game has what it takes to be a good game. It depends on the players playing it. Here, at Bored to Death TV, we have different groups we test the games on. And some groups really love the game, and others really hated it. So this just proves to us that it's a game which you and your gamer group really need to consider before buying it. Send this video out to them and see if it's their style. If they all agree, then by all means go get this game. It's a strategic resource management and worker placement game with different board every time you play it, thanks to the building tiles. The game does what it's meant to do in a good fashion, and we're giving Euphoria 7.5 shocked workers out of 10.